because there are people who claim to be psychic or have genuine supernatural powers. I don't claim to have any of those powers.
Tony don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, hey, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh. Send it through quickly. I'm making his dog like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding the road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag.
What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning into another episode of None of Your Business. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, and you can also check out the links to all of my other socials in the description below. We've also gone live on Patreon, which has a bunch of epic bonus content, such as uncut episodes, early access, and something I'm quite excited about, live Q&A sessions. Once a month, you'll be able to tune in at the time of recording, and at the end of the episode, you'll be able to ask the guest any questions you want. But without further ado, let's get into it. So firstly, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us on the None of Your Business podcast. I really do appreciate your time. So just to kick us off, give us a bit of your background and tell us a bit about yourself for the listeners who don't know you.
You got it. I'll do the long story medium, which is that for more than 20 years, I've traveled the world as an entertainer. The type is called mentalist, which is like a magician went to college and then got their PhD in mind reading tricks. So I use applied psychology, showmanship, and good old moxie to make it look like I can read minds, predict the future, influence people's choices, and do all those kinds of supernatural, amazing mind power skills. And then used it to great effect in my own career, and then realized, wait a minute, what I do on stage can help people off stage help solve their problems and issues and roadblocks in their careers and help businesses do better business for their clients. And that's kind of how I got into the corporate consulting and speaking and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a couple different companies that focus on helping businesses be more successful through the power of applied psychology. And yeah, I also like to help people make more out of what they've already got. And that's what keeps me busy.
Okay, nice. You mentioned that you like to let people, how did you phrase it, think that you're reading their mind. So we've obviously, well, most people would have heard of mind readers before. So obviously you're not actually reading anyone's mind. Maybe you can just explain that. What do you mean by make them think you're reading their mind? I'm assuming there's a whole psychology behind it.
There is. And I do like to make that distinction because there are people who claim to be psychic or have genuine supernatural powers and be able to talk to dead people and all sorts of things like that. I don't claim to have any of those powers. I wasn't born with this. It's not a gift. It's not that my grandma had the mojo and then passed it on to me. It's nothing like that. And I like to highlight that because I'm a poor kid from the mountains of North Carolina. I'm not special, right? That it's a skill that I've put a lot of time into getting better at doing it, but that's it. So I want to highlight that because it can be easy for people to go, oh, well, Jonathan was born with the gift, and therefore anything he has to say doesn't apply to me because I'm not psychic or I don't have the special powers. When really it's simply phenomenal communication skills put to use to hijack your thought processes. So we start getting into real tricky territory of what the definitions of words are and that kind of thing, because I am affecting your thought processes. And sometimes I do get you to think of things that you don't know. I'm helping you think about it. Right. So in a way, it is kind of surprising how extensive I can get into somebody's mind can be, but it's not because I've got psychic powers. So one of the ways I like to explain it is imagine, all of us, we use computers, and most people can barely type with their computer. Then there are some folks who study all the keyboard shortcuts to all the programs that they use on a daily basis. And now they're just flying through their workflow, and they're getting stuff done faster than you could even see what it is that they're doing, right? And you're like, holy cow, that's amazing. And then there are people who understand the fundamental code of that computer, and then they write programs to do things that everybody else is amazed that I didn't even know a computer could do that. So being a mentalist is kind of like being that hacker who understands the fundamental code of the human operating system that can get your operating system to do really weird things that you never knew was even possible. If you didn't understand what code was, if you didn't understand how computers work, you would say, oh yeah, that's impossible. Nobody could do that. It's like, well, you don't understand how it works. So it's really difficult for you to imagine what that system could even be capable of doing. And it's capable of doing a lot more than most casual users of their own cognitive software. Most people don't spend the time to understand the programming at the fundamental level.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And it's obviously quite a, similar to even computer programming, it's quite a niche field. How did you actually get into it? Was it just something you knew you wanted to do? Was it maybe an influence from someone you looked up to? How did you get into this space?
I happened into it, and that was all the way back when I was 5 or 6 years old. And my dad bought a magic kit for me, and he fully expected it to be in the trash in under a week. And a year later, I'm still playing with it. Hey, Dad, pick a card. Hey, Dad, watch this. And so my parents were just saints in how patient they were with this 6-year-old kid who was obsessed with doing card tricks. And it started out doing magic because you've got some card tricks, you've got rope tricks, you've got things you can do with stuff around the house, and here's some mind reading tricks, and here's an illusion you can build out of a cardboard box that you get for Christmas, that kind of thing. And I tried all of it, and the mind reading tricks seemed to be the most effective. They were the ones that really puzzled my parents the most, that they were like, wait a minute, there's no way you should be able to know that. How did you do that? So it was a combination of being fascinated with the thing I got the most positive reinforcement for, is really it. And then that's how I got on that trajectory, and spent a long time learning as many different tricks and demonstrations as I could. And eventually you get to the point where you're wondering, why is it at all that these things work? So you've got the trick is fun. Then you've got how it works at the surface level. You do this, you say this, and then the trick works. You're like, that's cool. What's even weirder is, why are these methods possible at a fundamental level? Like, that's cool to me. And then that's what unlocked being able to have better websites that convert better, or email campaigns that convert better, or sales conversations that land more business. Because once you unlock that fundamental psychology, that fundamental human operating system, you can write programs that get the results that you want.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but by the sounds of it, it's actually changed the way you interact with people on a daily basis. Like, you probably, the normal, like you gave that again, that example of the computer, the normal person interacting with each other, it's probably quite generally like the same kind of interaction. They're both interpreting and taking in information the same way. And you very likely are taking it in a completely different way, on a whole different level of your interaction with people. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's much more intentional than most people considered, I would say. And to run with that computer analogy, there's a lot of insider computer science lingo that computer science folks have come up with to explain things that human beings have done for hundreds of thousands of years. And it's, my favorite one's a protocol. A protocol is a fancy way of saying This is how two computers talk to each other. That's it, right? So I've got my Windows machine, I've got my Mac, and then how do they talk to each other? We've got TCP ports and IP addresses and all these different protocols. And if these two computers understand the same protocol, now they can talk to each other. But if they don't understand the same protocol, they don't speak the same language, there's no communication between them. You can't transfer any data, any knowledge, nothing. Human beings, we've been doing that forever. The walking up to people, being at a proper distance away from them, not being in their personal bubble at an uncomfortable distance, being at the right distance, looking like I'm a person that you would want to talk to, and then introducing myself. And hi, my name's Jonathan. What's your name? Oh, let's shake hands. All of that are social protocols that if you try to skip over them, there's no handshake, there's no agreement that we are on the same page here. So that's why a lot of people who say, oh, I hate small talk. I wish we could stop talking about useless crap and dig into real issues. Well, you're not going to establish that framework of connection if you try to skip that welcome handshake protocol.
100%. It just creates an uncomfortable space. Yeah.
Exactly. So the folks who say that want to skip the trust building exercise. Why in the world should I trust you if you're violating social protocols? I'm never going to open up my database to your access if you don't speak the protocol. So when you understand those social protocols, you actually get much more normal and intentional about being normal so that you don't raise any red flags.
Yeah. I think we kind of do it on a subconscious level, trying to get that first impression right, so that we can, as you said, not raise any red flags. So shifting onto, you said you started with, doing shows throughout the country and more of the magic mentalism side of things. And now you've shifted into more consulting. When you made that shift, how, when you're starting something new, you generally need an initial investment. Did you require that in order to start the consulting, or was it purely based on your relationships and network? And if you did, and you'd be comfortable to share, what was that initial investment?
Yeah, in a way, I had already made a lot of the investment required because I've been making websites since the 1990s. Like that's how old I am. I used to handwrite HTML in Notepad and then open it with Netscape Explorer just Netscape, not Windows. Anyway, yeah. So I'd open the HTML file and be like, oh, that's cool. I did that. So I've been building websites since forever. And a lot of the communication of the change in services that I offered were a challenge because most people, rightfully so, don't understand everything about you. They only understand what they've seen. And so far, they've only seen me as just an entertainer. You're a mind reader. You're a fun speaker. You're entertaining. But we have a multi-million-dollar business here with ultra high stakes. And we're not going to pay some trickster to help us.
Yeah. It's like they maybe didn't take you as seriously as you wanted them to in the beginning.
It's that they take me seriously as an entertainer. They don't understand why an entertainer would be a valuable asset to their business. And that's totally understandable because it's not their job to do my work for me. And my work is to communicate my value to them in a way that's easy for them to understand. So the biggest challenge was in the communication side of things, and then reframing what it is that I'm offering to the marketplace. So I wouldn't lead with, I'm a mentalist, I'm a comedy entertainer. I'm a business consultant specializing in soft skill development,
Okay, that makes sense.
powered through applied psychology. So now I build a website around that messaging, and I also talk about it when I'm at the show for my corporate client. Sometimes they would do it for me. They're like, "Oh, that was so much fun. Could you teach my sales team to be as engaging and personable as you are? Like, could you help them be a little better?" And like, "Yeah, sure." All right, now I'm into sales training. And then they're going, we're into some really tough negotiations. And the way that you could read their body language and know what they're thinking, that would be super valuable to us when we're negotiating with our service providers. So could you teach my team how to be observant like that? You betcha. Now I've got a negotiation workshop. Boy, you're such a fantastic public speaker and you're so fast on your feet and the way that you put things is so clear. Could you teach our sales team to be better presenters so that they're doing the pitch better? Because when they're in the room with the CEO and the C-suite of these multi-billion-dollar international corporations, they're getting a little flustered. So could you help them be a little more confident when they're presenting us as the solution? Yeah, you got it. There's the presentation workshop. So then I go and do those workshops, and then they're like, "Hey, we're going to be doing a trade show soon. Could you help us in the booth be like a salesperson, but get people to come over and maybe have some fun with your mind reading stuff?" Yeah, you bet. Now I'm a trade show lead generation expert. So one thing led to another. The fundamental things that I'm doing don't really change. What changes is the value proposition, like the way that I explain it to the marketplace in a way that they'll understand, which is different from how I would like to talk about it and what's most interesting to me. So I have to put it in their terms if I want them to understand it.
Okay, so it's like the same thing, just in a different space. Yeah, completely understand. And in our discussions before, because this is obviously our first time meeting, in our discussions before and in, doing a little digging and reading your bio, I came across the fact that you were on America's Got Talent. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was years ago.
Yeah, I was just curious. So that's quite a unique experience. It's not like it's not like every day that you meet someone that's been on America's Got Talent. So what was that like? And did you learn anything quite unique from that whole experience?
It was a phenomenal learning experience, and it was exhausting, really. And it was spread out over several months, but in a weird way. Because in one way, it was very compressed. The first day was the open cattle call, where they're like, "Oh, today we're in Chicago and look at the line of people." Well, yes, they do have that open, anybody come on down, stand in line for 8 hours. But also, if you're a professional entertainer, the producers understand that it's a sure thing that you know what you're doing. So we're not going to put you through all those hoops. You know what? How about we schedule you to come by at 2 p.m., go to this room, and then we'll call you. So, yeah, but they don't show you that on TV. So even though America's Got Talent is technically kind of like reality television, you're seeing the managed narrative that the producers are invested in communicating. So it's not a lie, it's not an untruth, it's that there's no way that a television show can communicate the whole truth about the experience of creating that show. So the show that everybody's watching is a carefully crafted experience, not reality. But you say it and you're like, "Oh yeah, sure, of course." But it's way deeper than that, because it could be that somebody does a great job and they get a standing ovation, but maybe their personal story isn't compelling enough to bring them through to the next round. They might have gotten 4 yeses, But for the purposes of the story of the show, they're going to cut getting booed from a different performer to this performer, because booing that performance is more compelling television. So somebody got booed, this person performed, but it's not that this performance got booed. So everything technically happens, but not in the way that you see in the show.
Sure. Okay. I didn't know it was that deep. Like, I obviously assumed that they would nitpick and structure it the way that they want to, but yeah, I had no idea it was on that level. But anyway, so just shifting gears a little bit, you've obviously come quite far in your career. You mentioned that you've done shows throughout the country, and now we've spoken about you being on America's Got Talent, and you've now shifted into the consultancy side of things. Have you ever sat back and felt like you've made it? Everyone has that idea. Well, I feel like most people have that idea of when they would be able to feel like they've achieved success in their own right. Have you ever felt like you've had a taste of that or achieved that? And if not, what would that look like for you?
I'm very much in the minority here, because I've felt that way since I was about 5 years old. Like, never have I ever thought, oh, I'll be happy if. It's fascinating to me. Like, I don't know what it is, but when I do a trick properly and everybody goes, wow, I'm like, that's it. And I started getting that dopamine when I was a kid. So I found my area of expertise. I found my zone of genius when I was a kid. And that context, that realm of study, has provided me all the fodder I could ever want and hope for since I was a kid. So there are things I've wanted to accomplish. There are things that I was disappointed I couldn't make happen. But I've never, in a single day, ever thought, well, I'll make it when I'm on TV or whatever. It's just another day at the office. It's another day on planet Earth to explore my curiosity and see how I can help the world be a better place. So that's been every day, all day for 35 years now. So yeah, I don't have any explanation for it. I can't help anybody else, because that hasn't been ever a thing that I've had to spend any time balancing. That whole, well, how do you balance striving after feeling like you made it, but not getting complacent or not being happy with an accomplishment? Oh, I thought this would feel better. Nah, man, it's been fun every minute. Like when I was walking out on that stage for America's Got Talent and I knew there were 14 cameras around, I'm like, this is really fun. Remember this because this is awesome, right? But it's still another day in the career. No single thing really is going to make or break you, because the day after filming, oh, I'd have to wake up, have breakfast, get back to work. So there's no kind of, well, oh, I've made it, I can relax now. Just like, what's the coolest way I can spend my time today? Let's do that. And that's served me well my whole life.
I think there's a deeper sense of joy you find in finding your calling, or finding, the thing that you said, you would do that trick or whatever it might be, and you get that sense of dopamine when you see the crowd or the person's reaction. Like that was probably why you felt that this was your calling, because it hooked you in that sense.
Yeah. And that's why I like to put it, that it's the best context for me to explore my creativity and curiosity. Anything I'm interested in, and I'm interested in a lot of things, there's always a way to put it to use in my work.
Yeah, 100%. I feel the same way. It's even just talking about this podcast, I don't make any money doing this. all it takes from me is time, to be quite honest, but it gives a lot. I always say to my girlfriend afterwards, I feel so pumped after a recording. I might feel tired the whole day, having worked the whole day, and I have to come home and set up the cameras and the lighting and the whatever else is the case. But afterwards, it's that dopamine rush. So it keeps me going. And that's why I do it, not because of any other reason than it's something I want to do and enjoy doing. But yeah, talking on, speaking about time and speaking about when you were younger and, some of the challenges you faced, if you could go back in time, is there anything that you would do differently given the chance?
Ooh, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot I would do different. You're not going to get one of those full of crap answers of, oh, all my experiences made me who I am today. No, man, there's a lot I would do different. And every single one of those things that I would go back in time and do different, it's the result of hearing that really quiet voice in my head going, don't do it. You know exactly what you should be doing. You know what the right path is. And I'd be like, shut up, me. I'm going to do this. And then it all falls apart. So every single thing that I would go back in time and change is the result of not listening to that quiet, universal, timeless, forever voice that has always existed and will always exist, that's separate from my waking awareness. Ignoring that voice always spells disaster every single time. So that's a really important lesson, right? So that's why to thine own self be true. That's the self that it's talking about, is that fundamental witness of life that has that timeless wisdom of the ages that you're like, you're messing up, bro. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like, yeah, but it looks so cool. And I'm like, don't do it. And then I do it. And then I learn why I shouldn't have.
100%. So we've touched on some of the challenges you faced already. And in life, I'm sure you know this as much as anyone else knows this, no matter your race, no matter your background, no matter what language you speak, you are going to face challenges. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you've faced, personally in your life? And there's no doubt it would have obviously influenced your business and all aspects of your life. But yeah, what would you say is one of those the biggest challenges that you faced?
I'd say the biggest challenge is holding on to the idea of what I thought I wanted to be rather than the reality of what could be, resulting in a lot of pain and suffering. Because for the longest time, my concept is I'm an entertainer. I'm a full-time performer. This is what I do. It's the only thing I do. I won't even consider doing anything else. And I'm the performer. I'm the rock star. It's my job to be bigger than life. It's my audience wants me to be a rock star, and then believing my own promo that way. What happened is that informed the kind of show that I wrote and created, where it's all about me. Look what I can do. And oh, here's this other thing that I can do that you can't. And you've never seen anybody in the world be able to do something like this. Isn't that cool? To a point, yes, that is interesting. But that gets old real fast. When I let go of it's the all about me show, and then I focused on how could I put my skills to use, making participants from the audience be the star of the show. What if I helped them do things that they thought were impossible, and here they are doing it? That's more interesting to me. And turns out it was more interesting to my audiences. So the shows got better. And I started getting booked more often because that show feels better. So of course they're going to bring it back because you made my whole team feel like $1 million. I can't wait to bring you back to have them feel that way again. You'll get invited back if you make them feel awesome. But if it's an hour's worth of tell me how good I am. They're like, I mean, you are good. Like, admittedly, that's amazing. Why are we going to bring you back? We kind of get the picture. So the show got so much better. So then I start making more money and I get to be more financially successful. And then when I let go of I'm only an entertainer, that's the only thing I do. And I started thinking about how could I put my experience and skills and expertise to use in different places, different environments. Oh, corporate consulting makes a lot of sense, because if I can help everybody, if I could just help the sales team of a company be more successful, now the business is more successful because they have more clients paying them more money. So they've got bigger budgets to accomplish more. That helps the sales team. That helps delivery. That helps the leadership, the CEO. Everybody's making more money to take care of their families. So now the families of everybody at that company are better off. But now that company can deliver better quality results at better prices, more competitive prices. So every customer and client of that business is better off because they're getting more value for their dollar. And now their families have more money to live better lives. Why wouldn't you do that? Or like, why wouldn't you dedicate your life to doing that? Right. So then when I finally pulled my head out of my ass and stopped just being a performer, my life got so much better. Right. It's so that was the biggest challenge of letting go of that idea of here's what I have to be and what I want to be, and then it not delivering as much for me as I expected it to. And then when I could let go of this is the only way I'm going to provide for myself, suddenly I had way more opportunities to make more money, helping more people, be more awesome. Like, this is clearly the better route to go. So I still do the performing, and now all this other stuff that helps individuals and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and personal brands, as well as multi-billion-dollar international companies. To me, it's all the same thing, helping people be more awesome through the power of applied psychology. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. What is the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Don't change. Be true to yourself, right? Because sometimes if yourself is an asshole, that's not so good. So be willing to work on yourself, right? You're fine the way you are. No, you could use some work. You could use some work.
Yeah, if you're an asshole, then okay, that makes sense. I love that. And so what's next for your business? You've come such a long way. Do you have any, visions of what's still to come and, a game plan to get there?
Yeah, for quite some time, for the past several years, 5-6 years, I've been doing a lot of that corporate consulting, and you would have to work at that company if you wanted to learn what I have to know, because I come in for that 2-day workshop and then the company's paying me to come in and train you guys. Well, not everybody works at multi-million-dollar, multi-international corporations. So I want to share more of what I know and equip more people more effectively, more quickly. So I'm spooling up a sales training course and a course on how to get known for what you're good at in a way that people will pay you for it, right? Because that's been my whole career. So doing more kind of cohort-based group training with cool people who can do awesome things, but don't know how to leverage it the way that I've learned how to do.
Okay. And making that more open to the public.
Right. So kind of building out online a whole training university, I call it the Institute of Applied Mentalism, where I'll be teaching people mentalism principles to put to use in their own careers and solopreneur efforts and that kind of thing.
And, we've spoken a lot about happiness and finding fulfillment. This is something that I always think about because I feel like it somewhat affects that. It like, who you are kind of speaks to this. What would you like your tombstone to say one day?
Probably something along the lines of illegitimus non carborundum, which has been pretty much my motto since 11th grade, which is do not be ground down or worn away by people of illegitimate birth, which translated to modern English is don't let the bastards get you down.
Okay. Okay, that's a good one. I like that. And if you were in my seat, what would you ask yourself and what would the answer be?
What's your favorite system of making sense from the world? And that would be Wing Chun Kung Fu.
Okay. Not the answer I was expecting. What does that have to do with making sense of the world?
Everything. Because Kung Fu is the practice of integrating your mind, intention, and body so that not a single one is out of alignment with the others. And when your whole life is brought into perfect alignment and there's not a single atom of your existence that is not focused in the same direction, there's no doubt, there's no confusion, there's no second guessing, there's absolute commitment to one point. Good luck trying to defend against that. You could move through anybody if you've got that single-minded focus. So Wing Chun's the study and practice of developing that kind of integrity of life so that you're not bleeding off energy or attention or effort or whatever.
I might be completely off the mark here with this one, but I just finished reading a book written by his daughter. But are you a big fan of Bruce Lee by any chance?
Bruce Lee, yeah, he's fantastic. And Wing Chun was his first martial art that he didn't get the whole system, so that's why he came up with Jeet Kune Do, which were his answers to the problems that he was not provided the answers to. So he came up with his own answers, and that was the birth of Jeet Kune Do. So yeah, a lot of the philosophy that he's really well known for is baked into Wing Chun. So a lot of the sayings and wisdom are straight up from his early education in that system.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. I just finished his book it's written by his daughter, Shannon Lee, called Be Water, My Friend. And it's like, I was expecting it to be a lot more focused on Kung Fu, but it was actually a lot more on the mind and how it all relates to each other and how it all flows together. So it's actually quite funny that you brought it up.
But there is no difference because you have to train your whole being. If you only train one or the other, you're going to be out of alignment. You're going to be out of whack. And if you only train the physical, well, then now you've got that one tool. I'm going to punch my way out of this problem. If you only train your mind, you might get in a situation where you can't talk your way out of it. So you've got to cultivate both sides and get them to a high level so that both are integrated. And now it's you managing through your problems. So there is no difference between abstract philosophy and learning how to punch better. It's all the same thing.
Okay. So lastly, what is one message you would want to give to a young entrepreneur or a young person looking to pursue their own business venture? Think of it as a success nugget that you've maybe held onto throughout your career.
A ruthless focus on how you can help the most people the fastest at scale will be one of the most rewarding studies you've ever made. That's it. That's the secret. Anything you want to accomplish, that's the formula.
And one bonus-ish question, because I actually only thought of it now. And forgive me if this is not a nice question to ask of someone who's done psychology, because my girlfriend's actually studied psychology. So I know that it's usually not. But I'm going to frame it in a different way to what she's told me. People have asked her and she doesn't like it. But we've obviously never met and we've never spoken until now. But in our interaction, just from this interaction, are there certain things that you're able to pick up about the kind of person I am? And, I don't know, just deeper than what other people might be able to pick up on from a normal interaction? Or has it not been deep, I don't know, deep enough for you to get that kind of information?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. That would be a question I would fully expect anybody to ask, right? So there's no fault in that question at all, right? The challenge is compared to what, right? That's why it's a difficult question to answer, because we do live in this universe of this particular interaction and this dynamic. We would have to imagine a completely different universe to be able to compare this interaction to the imaginary other, right? And people are really good at understanding each other, right? I would feel comfortable sitting next to you on the subway. I wouldn't be deeply concerned that you would attack me or have grave personal failings and that kind of a thing. So most of what we understand is nonverbal and non-conceptualized. So a lot of that understanding and the protocol of exchange of mojo and energy is not quantifiable or atomistic. There are no atoms bouncing between us, right? So any answer to that question is inherently metaphysical. It's about meaning and depth and context and relationship, all things that you can't measure with a yardstick or a thermometer. So it's a lot of it's filtered through my experience, through your experience, and there are always, it's kind of like three dances going on at the same time. So there's me to you, you to me, reality to both of us, of shared contexts to understand what's going on. And then that's the value of mentalism, is being able to flow between each of those perspectives as needed to accomplish a certain goal. So the things that I understand, I don't really know that I understand them until I have a directed goal that I now need to leverage that understanding to a specific outcome. So I wouldn't know what to tell you about you that I know until I'm trying to get you to do something. And then I'll be like, all right, I have to do this to get him to do that.
Yeah, it's more intentional. Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so just before signing off, now's your time to give your business, a shameless plug. Where can people find you in your business?
Got it. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to shameless plug. So the easiest place to find me is to go to icanreadminds.com. That's it. And there you can sign up for my email list. I do email every single weekday. You will hear from me a lot, but each message is super short, very focused on something interesting, whether it's a psychology tidbit or something I found, a cool piece of tech, whatever. I try to imagine, would somebody want to pay $5 to know this? And then that would be what I email out. So from there, you can find me on social, which is I'm most active on Twitter. So if you want to know every random thought that runs through my brain, follow me on Twitter. I post every week on YouTube. I kind of think of them as video essays. So instead of just writing an article, I talk to the camera about different ideas every week. And that's pretty much it. From there, you can find everything else that I do, the books that I've written, and the Institute of Applied Mentalism, if you want personal training. And then I've got my company websites, roitradeshows.com and savantenterprises.com, if you want to know what kind of corporate consulting I can do for you. So yeah, that's it. In short, go to icanreadminds.com and that'll get you there.
Okay, awesome. Well, anyway, thank you so much for your time, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
You're super welcome. It really is an honor to be invited to share my thoughts. So I deeply appreciate it.
I need a bag, bruh. Send it through quickly. I'm making his dog like I'm in a big league.